Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my Daily Dose with Tim. Today is season 2, episode 45, and we are on part 4 of income properties this season. Today, we're going to cover two different KPIs, so two different key performance indicators, as that's the train we've been on. And the first one, I'm thinking this is not a term that most people have been exposed to, and that is what we call the coverage ratio. And so, first of all, giving you the formula and the definition of it. Coverage ratio is when you take NOI, so your net operating income, and you divide it by debt financing on an annual basis, okay? Or debt financing or debt servicing rather. Okay, so it's completely up to you on how you want to call it. I mean, a lot of times I usually call it debt servicing, most would just call it financing. However, depending on, just because right now we're talking about income properties as a whole, so that could be anything from a single family property all the way to a multi-unit family buildings as well. So debt financing, debt servicing is what we want to put down here. So by definition is where you have NOI divided by debt servicing. NOI, once again, is revenue minus expenses, okay? So this is very different from a lot of the simple calculations that we've done, in the sense that, as you know now, NOI does not include your debt servicing. And so in this particular case, a lot of the times what we really want this number to be is 1.2 or higher in terms of the ratio that we want. And honestly though, it's not something that we're looking for. It's a lot of the times what the lenders are looking for. So think about it. Why are they looking for 1.2 or higher? So 1.2 really by definition is whatever this number works out to be is 120%, meaning it's 20% over the 100% debt servicing that you would have to do. Why? Well, the lenders just want to make sure that after you pay them, you still have some money left. So regardless of how well you have budgeted for your expenses, I'm going to circle that for you guys. So regardless of how carefully and how diligently you have done your NOI calculations, usually they want to see a 1.2 ratio, or 120%, if you will, so that, well, you can say that they are being nice, that they want to make sure that after you pay down debt, you still have some cash flow left. Okay, so that extra 20% of your NOI now becomes your cash flow as well. And so it really depends on the lenders that you go with, or even the mortgage broker that you're going to be working with. Most of them, just like it doesn't matter how big or small the property is, most lenders may have their own criteria, and especially during good times and tough times, they change their qualifications and qualifying criteria very often. And you know, this is an analogy that I use quite often with a lot of my students, is the fact that I like to describe mortgages very much like a shelf of cereals when you walk into a grocery stores. Why? Because when you walk in to a grocery stores, and let's just say you're shopping for cereals, when you go onto that aisle, sometimes you'll notice some products are completely out of stock, and sometimes, you know, prices have changed, and sometimes, let's just say that you've been buying frosted cornflakes your entire life, and all of a sudden at that same grocery store you've been shopping at for the last 10 years, where you can always count on finding where the frosted cornflakes are, then they all of a sudden move it somewhere else. So I want you to think of mortgage products or lending products or financing terms as something that's very, very fluid. These are products on the shelves. It could be repackaged. They could have brand new formula, brand new ingredients that's added to it. They could modify it. So many people, a lot of the times when they're asking a mortgage broker, all they focus on is one thing, which is rates. So if you're a mortgage broker watching this, I hope you like it when I say this. It's not about the rates. It's about how well you and your mortgage broker can actually work together. And a good mortgage broker that you can find and team up with as a real estate investor is one that understands that you've got a long-term vision and a long-term financial freedom plan that you're working on. So instead of just buying one or two properties, again, other than the fact that maybe your 1 or 2 properties are very large scales, which means it gives you the cash flow that you need to walk away from your jobs or giving you the passive income to make you feel like you're financially secure and financially free, whatever the case may be. However, in most cases, I always like to say most students that I work with and that we've worked with, we say that we want to make sure that you learn how to crawl before you walk, you learn how to walk before you can run. And so this is why a good mortgage broker that you want to work with is somebody that understands that the goal that you're looking to achieve and what your experiences have been so far. And especially if you've been working with a mentor and a coach, they can actually explain that on your behalf. So maybe initially you'll lay out a plan for maybe 3 properties, 5 properties, 8 properties, and maybe out of the 8 properties, the first 3 could be single family homes. Why? Because we want to get you warmed up, getting used to pulling a trigger on doing deals, because at the end of the day, once you get very used to that, you're just playing with bigger numbers when you go into the multifamily and commercial arena as well. But the point that I really want to make with you here is that it's never about the rates nor the products that your mortgage broker can have access to. It really is about how they can actually find the lending solutions that you're looking for. Because more often than not, especially when you go into the bigger deals down the road, where you're always constantly talking about, in the high 6 figures or millions and millions and millions of dollars, most of the times it's not common. It's very not common that you have just one lender that will back it all, because this is where we start to do some creative financing as well. So coming back here, I just want to remind everybody the full formula one more time. And I'm not quite sure why it is not letting me write anything. So I am hoping that we're still okay. Ooh, hang on a second. Whoa, technical difficulties happening all around here. So let's see. Okay, it looks like it's not gonna let me do this. So can I text now? Okay, so revenue. Oh, there we go. I can text. That's awesome. Minus, whoopsie, revenue. And you're going to minus expenses. It wouldn't let me change colors for you. So just remember, revenue minus, I'm just going to type out minus expenses equals your NOI, which is net operating income, and then minus your debt servicing, and that equals your cash flow. So depending on how you're doing this formula, this could be an annualized figure, it could be on a monthly figure. In this particular case though, the lenders typically look for an annualized figure anyway. So that is coverage ratio. Now, some of you guys might be going, ooh, I got a deal on my hand right now, and the coverage ratio is 1.6, 1.8 based on that logic, because my mortgage broker has already told me the terms that I've been pre-qualified for, and because right now interest rates are at an all-time low. And so what tends to happen when that happens is, hey, lenders are not stupid either. What they want to make sure is that you don't get carried away, because what happens when the interest rate comes right back up, your monthly payments might have to go up, or if it doesn't go up, your amortization might have to be extended, or maybe your coverage ratio is completely out of whack at that point. So what they will do when the coverage ratio goes beyond the normal 1.2, 1.3 range that most of them are expecting, they will now say, you know what, instead of giving you a 30-year amortization, they're going to cut it down to maybe 25 years. And just remember, amortization period, I know we're all very conditioned to the 25, 30-year sort of concept, especially when it comes to single family homes. At the end of the day, amortization period, it can be any numbers. It could be, I mean, we've had some doozies where we get approved for financing and the amortization works out to be, okay, you got to put down 16.5% in down payment, and your amortization period is going to be 22 years and 8 months, for example. So we just usually do the 25 and 30 because most people that start in the residential area, or that you start with residential single family homes as your investment properties in the beginning, that's what we're all used to. So just remember, when it comes to the larger properties, that could change as well. And so the next topic that I want to go into now, oh, I really wish that the pen could still be working here. Let me replug in a little bit and see if it's gonna call. Oh, yes, I am back, baby. Okay, so cash on cash return. Turns out all I had to do is unplug and replug back in. So cash on cash return. It is a subject that we actually spoke about in the last season as well. And the reason why I still want to touch on it one more time is because this is the definition that I learned, and to me, it still makes sense. And also, in my opinion, we're dealing with numbers and figures and facts and investing with real money. So definitions always matter, in my opinion. So cash on cash return versus return on investment. So ROI is something that we've heard a lot about, okay? And so this is ROI, and a lot of people will do COC here. And so if you recall from season 1, the biggest differentiating point that I always say is from acquisition, usually these are the 3 simple stages of most income properties, which is acquisition period. And some of you guys will do the rehab here or renovations, whatever you want to call it, the cash flow period, and then you have your exit period where you basically sell. And here is where you buy. And so for me, the way I learned it and the way I still operate and how I really calculate every single deal is depending on the strategy that I'm using. Return on investment, in my opinion, is only completely figured out when there is a clear exit. And this is why, if you remember, when we were covering the lease option strategy, we actually call it return on investment, because when we go into the deal, we already know that there is an expiry date, which means there's a clear acquisition or entry, and then there's a clear exit, which is when we sell the property back to the tenant buyers. However, in most cases, for a lot of people, when they acquire income properties, there is the intention to hold it for a long time. Some people hold it longer than the others, and some people hold these properties longer than, in my opinion, they should have. Like I keep saying, buildings are like people. The older we get, the more problems we have and the more costly it takes to maintain it. And so same idea. And this is why these days developments and infills are amazing, because you get to build a brand new product based on the specific exit strategies that you've chosen for yourself and how you want to maintain that. But simply because it's brand new and you've got a say in the planning, in the drawing, in the building stage, you can make sure that the quality is really there. And as a result, it actually does impact your NOI or the performance of the asset a lot better too. Why? Because in most cases, you might be able to budget just a little bit less for the first 3 to 5 years in terms of wear and tear or maintenance and repairs, because everything is brand new. And if you team up with a reputable contractor or builder, then usually there are certain warranties that they can provide as well. Okay, so I've gone on a bit of a tangent. So let's come back here. Cash on cash, as you can probably see now, is, let me change the color back quickly, is your annualized, let's do this, annualized cash flow divided by your initial investment. And so once again, initial investment happens during the acquisition period. So in a typical income property scenario, what could go into your initial investment? It's something that we've covered in lease options as well. However, I'm going to expand on it quickly just to make sure that you got a clear list. Okay, so first thing first, when you buy a property, you need a lawyer to help you do the conveyancing process. Okay, and then you need to do inspections, and a lot of times you need to do appraisal, especially when it comes to bigger properties as well. Appraisal is oftentimes falling under the purchaser's responsibility. So you need to make sure that you budget that in. And obviously, who can forget about down payment? Unless you're getting 100% financing, we always have to put that down there as well. Now, that being said though, in the bigger properties, you might need to do land surveys, and you might have to do environmentals. okay, to make sure that the soil, the land that the property is sitting on, has not been previously contaminated. Usually, I mean, the very simple assessment that we usually do is if you're standing on that property, let's say if you're physically there visiting the piece of property that you're about to buy, just take a quick scan around, okay? As far as your eyes can see, is there or has there ever been, say, for example, a gas station and or a dry cleaner? If there is, chances are you might have to do a phase one environmental during your acquisition process. So I'm purposely not giving budgets simply because we're covering the subject of income properties in a very wide scope right now. So in single family homes, a lot of these expenses actually are not necessary, and so we wouldn't worry about it. However, on bigger properties, a lot of these additionals need to be considered for sure. And then you might have lender fees, and then you might have other fees. So broker fees, for example, when they find you, the lender that's going to back your deal as well. So these are just some of the things that you might want to consider for sure if you're going into a bigger property. And inspection quotes, I know inspection quotes, sometimes bigger properties, some insurance company will actually ask you to pay for that service to give you a quote. It's not very common. However, we have come across that. At the same time though, more often than not, whatever it is that you pay down, it's treated as a deposit. Once you actually activate or select and move forward with the policy later on, then, sorry, I'm talking about insurance, inspection, then they will deduct it against your bill. And on the flip note, I jumped the gun already, insurance quotes as well. I mean, this is not something that's been very common up until about 2019, especially in the Canadian markets as well, is the fact that insurance providers sometimes will actually charge you now. So see it like an application fee or a commitment fee, which is actually very common when we are doing business in the UK ourselves as well. Even for teeny tiny single family homes where we can pick up for about 60, 70,000 pounds, we actually have to pay for an application fee when we're getting insurance and inspections and surveys done. So I think that's just something that we're doing simply because the insurance companies have gone up quite a bit in terms of the insurance premiums on multifamily buildings, especially and condos. And so these days, not common, however, just a note of caution for you. However, these are the items usually you want to include in your acquisition expenses as well. And so there you have it. Annualized cash flow over initial investment. I'll write it out as well, so there's no confusion there. I means your initial investment. And initial investment can include all these things on the right-hand side. So there you have it. Today is part 4 of income properties. And after this, we're going to go into being a bit more creative for a couple more episodes, and then we're going to go into what not to do. Now that the foundation has been laid out throughout the entire season, we're going to go into some real life deal analysis, what to do, what not to do, and what can you do in order for you to turn a bad deal into a potentially great deal for you. And that takes knowledge and experience. So thank you very much again for joining me. I appreciate your likes and shares and your comments and your feedback. And I really thank you for sharing the message that I'm creating here with those who you think can benefit from it. So keep liking it, keep watching, keep sharing them. Thank you so very much again for joining me today. I will see you at the next episode. Have a great evening, everybody. Live well.